early did the 2026 Risers go in our recent mock draft? Find out next on Fantasy Baseball Today Express. Welcome into FBT Express on Tuesday, December 23rd. I am Frank Stanfield, joined by Chris Towers. Where did these players get drafted in our first head-to-head points mock draft? And up first, we have the big dumper. Cal Raleigh went at pick 15. Chris, are you in or out at pick 15?
So I think there are two schools of thought when it comes to how to approach catcher in a points league, because you only need to start one. And so some people will say, especially in a year like this where the position is so deep, why spend an early pick at all when you can get someone good with your very last pick? Of course, the difference is in this format last season, Cal Raleigh outscored the number 2 catcher by almost 200 points. He basically had William Contreras production plus 50%. So I don't think Raleigh will be quite that good, but he was a huge difference maker and will continue to be. So I think it's justifiable. You know, you only start, 10 players, 10 hitter spots in this format? You got to get impact at every single one of them. There might not be a bigger impact player in 2026. There certainly wasn't in 2025 than Cal Raleigh. So I think it's fine. It just probably won't be me at 15.
Next up, we had Nick Kurtz at pick 16, one pick ahead of Vlad Jr. In or out on Nick Kurtz, pick 16?
Probably out. If you look at, and I've talked about this on the full episode, but if you look at guys who had 1,000 OPS as a rookie, Ted Williams is the only one to repeat 1,000 OPS. Nick Kurtz probably isn't Ted Williams. He's probably not even Aaron Judge, who, remember, hit 57 home runs, I think, as a rookie, dealt with some injuries, didn't get anywhere close to that same production his second year. It's just really hard to be as good as Nick Kurtz was every single year. If he is, he's one of the 2 or 3 best hitters in baseball. I'm not ready to say that yet. He should get a little downgrade in this format for how much he strikes out as well. So I think 16 is probably too early for Nick Kurtz.
What about Junior Caminero?
Caminero! Ha! Ha, Caminero!
Caminero at pick 24, in or out?
That's probably also fine. This is not a guy who walks a ton. It was only 6.3% last year. He's a very aggressive hitter. He swings a lot. I don't think we should expect Junior Caminero to be a great source of on-base percentage throughout his career, but he makes a lot of contact. He hits the ball very hard. It's weird to say about a 21-year-old, I think, who just hit 45 homers, but he's not at all a finished product as a hitter. His swing is not finely tuned for production yet. Even as hard as he hits the ball, it's a lot of stuff to the power alleys. So I think there's some room for Junior Caminero to regress from last season, but I also think there's room for fewer home runs, but a higher batting average, and the overall production stays pretty similar. So I think, again, this one is probably fine. 24th overall, that's okay for Junior Caminero.
Next up, we have Crow-Armstrong. He went at pick 40. In or out in a head-to-head points league?
I think it's too early. In a league where you only need 3 outfielders, where you need impact production from every spot, Crow-Armstrong was a top 10 outfielder in this format last season, to be fair. But I think we all mostly expect him to be, I don't know. I guess that's a question for you. Do you expect Pete Crow-Armstrong to be worse overall in 2026 than he was in 2025? I think I do. Yeah, I don't think he's a 31 homer guy.
Yeah, I agree. I would expect PCA to take a little bit of a step back, and again, his plate discipline not good in a points league as well. So
not a big margin for error in this format, as we saw in the second half. He was just flat out not worth rostering in the second half of the season in this format. So I think 40 probably too early for Pete Crow-Armstrong.
All right, let's take a quick break. We'll be back right after this.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ. Streaming free anywhere you are.
Welcome back in FBT Express. We're looking at big risers from last season. Where did they go in our recent mock draft? Roman Antony is next up. He went at pick 45. In or out for the guy who actually drafted Roman Antony?
Yeah, I think we kind of got the answer there. I was the one who took Roman Antony at 45, so in. I think that's fair to say. I think Roman Antony has top 5 hitter in baseball upside. I think he is so talented. He hits the ball so hard. He's got such a great swing. He's a patient, selective hitter who knows what he's trying to do up there. There was some swing and miss in his game last season, but if he tightens that up at all, there is big breakout potential. If he starts elevating the ball with how hard he hits it, there's huge breakout potential here. I would be a little disappointed if Roman Antony isn't a top 25 hitter in this format next season, assuming health.
All right, next up we have Geraldo Perdomo at pick 48. In or out on Perdomo?
So this is the thing that's going to be really, really hard about talking about Geraldo Perdomo in mock drafts that the three of us are participating in, and especially Scott and I. I don't know if you're as in on Geraldo Perdomo as Scott and I are, but Scott, I think, has him as a top 50 player in roto and head-to-head. And I'm not far off on Perdomo being that high. Maybe if it's a 3-person league, Scott and I can, play chicken on who's going to draft Geraldo Perdomo, but he's going to go later than this in most drafts. So by that standpoint, 48th, probably too early. I think in most drafts, you will not have to take Geraldo Perdomo that early. In leagues where Scott and I are in, did Scott take him in this draft?
No, it was someone. Okay. It was someone, but it was also the first overall pick. So if you want Perdomo there, he probably isn't making it back to 72. So
no, I definitely not in leagues where Scott and I are drafting, and people who listen to this podcast are probably going to be higher on Perdomo than the consensus as well. So in that context, it's too early. I think it's justifiable for the type of player Geraldo Perdomo looked like in 2025. Phenomenal. Like some of the best plate disciplines in baseball. 13% walk rate, 11.5% strikeout rate. The raw power is not great, but he elevates the ball to the pull side really well. He's going to be in a good lineup. I think there's a lot to like about Geraldo Perdomo, even if 48 is probably earlier than you have to take him.
I agree. I expect the power and speed to both come back this year for Perdomo, but just from a points league perspective, his plate discipline is really, really good. So I think he's going to continue to be very good in this format, but overall, I do expect Perdomo to take a pretty big step back in 2026. Next up, we have Michael Garcia at pick 50, who had a breakout season as well. This is pretty early for him. In or out on Michael Garcia?
I think it's a little early. I think Michael Garcia is very, very good, but one, he's better in a roto context than a points league, although he has really good plate discipline of his own. It's not quite as good as Perdomo's. He doesn't walk quite as much. Last year was a career high. It was 9.3%. Strikeout rate's excellent. He has decent power, decent speed. It's just not a great lineup, and I don't think it will be. And so I think there's just a little bit holding Michael Garcia back as a top 50 pick.
And last two, I'll give you a double dose here. Byron Buxton and George Springer, they went back-to-back. Buxton at pick 61, Springer at pick 62. In or out on those two?
I think Springer's very similar to Perdomo, where in most leagues, I think his ADP in early roto drafts on NFBC is 104, and Buxton's like 76. So big gap there. I know for the most part we're all bought in on George Springer, right? You would have taken him here if you hadn't taken, or no, you did take him.
I did take him here. I kind of felt a little forced into it just because outfield was drying up very quickly. Yeah. I think in most drafts I probably will not be the one to take George Springer, but I do think he'll be pretty good still in a points league format. So
very good for this format, even if you don't think he's going to be as good as he was last year when he was a top 10 player.
Yeah.
In roto and points, I believe. I think he's a more defensible pick here than Byron Buxton. Byron Buxton's skill set is much more tuned for roto. He is a very, very good base stealer, a good source of power, but the plate discipline's not good for him. George Springer's plate discipline much better. I would rather have Springer than Buxton. I think both were probably reaches at this spot, though.
All right, for more extensive fantasy baseball coverage, listen to our full-length podcast, Fantasy Baseball Today, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Thanks for listening to Fantasy Baseball Today Express, and we will be back again later this week. Bye-bye.